First of all, Ignacio, thank you very much for inviting Rewilding Argentina to present Iberá, a landscape of hope. And thank you very much to the audience for being here. I will stand up for a while. Thank the audience for being here. I feel, apart from nervous, truly inspired for being here, surrounded by all of these wonderful people I've met a few years ago, and now I had the chance to keep on meeting new people, which we are all working in different contexts, but yet we are all united under the same passion, which is the conservation of nature. So I feel really grateful for that. Ignacio, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Fátima. I'm 31 years old. I've studied business administration. I'm not a biologist. But I've joined the Rewilding Argentina's team 7 years ago. Therefore, this is not about my story. This is a story of Iberá. This story I'm going to share with you, it's about people. It's about the people of the province of Corrientes. It's about the vision of Kris and Doug Tompkins. And it's about the collective effort of many individuals, such as Ignacio and many others, who are present here as well in this talk, who have helped somehow transform the way of doing rewilding in South America. So this place went from being the black hole, a really complicated area to manage, turned out to be the driving force, the lungs, and the heart of the province of Corrientes. So, spoiler alert, such as Ignacio did this morning. I will start from the very end. I'm going to share with you a brief video from a story of success. This video, it's from Mombiri, a male juvenile that is swimming through the Paraná River, heading all the way up to Paraná. And this video shows the dreams come true, and not only that they come true, but that they also exceed our expectations, since the jaguar has been absent for more than 7 decades in the Iberá wetlands, and now it's not also recovering, but also dispersing through rivers to other regions. But first things first, where is the Iberá wetland located? So this great Iberá Park is located in South America, in Argentina, in northeastern Argentina, in the province of Corrientes. This great park holds 1.3 million hectares, out of which 160,000 hectares belong now to the national park, and almost 600,000 hectares belong to the provincial park. Also, it holds 10 gateways. Each of one is connected to a different community. Well, it's nowadays the largest protected area in northern Argentina, and it's the second biggest wetland after the Pantanal in South America. But above all, this place is where the economy of nature model was developed, and what I'm going to share today is how is it that we end up arriving to this model. So when did the story begin? Which are the origins of our project? So the story began in the 1990s when Kris and Doug Tompkins left the United States. They were both very successful businessmen, but they decided to leave the business world and devoted themselves to conservation. So they went to South America to create new national parks. So Doug, many of them you might know, of course, but just for the ones that don't know his story, he was founder of the North Face and Esprit, and Kris, she worked as more than 20 years as the CEO of Patagonia brand. She was working hand in hand with Yvonne and Malinda Chenard. But well, by the 1997, they had already managed to create Pumalín National Park in southern Chile. And that same year, they were invited by the National Parks Administration to visit northern Argentina. So they overflew the wetland, and 1 month later, they bought the first property, San Alonso property, and well, that's where the story began. So Doug used to recall that the Iberá wetlands was like the Okavango of the South America, but an empty stage where all the actors were missing, referring to the wildlife that had gone extinct. And why is it that the wildlife had gone extinct? And basically it's because during the first half of the 20th century, Argentina suffered a profound process of defaunation. And as a result, well, this was triggered, of course, because of the firearms and because of the wildlife trade of skins and feathers that were being brought to Europe. So as you can see here, there's a picture of a hunter holding on his behind the skins of many jaguars. So as a result, many species have gone locally extinct, such as the giant anteater, the collared peccary, of course, the jaguar, the giant river otter, and even some of them, as the green and red macaw, went extinct in their entire country. So these environmental laws also brought great impact within the culture. So local traditions and local knowledge has been marginalized. But there has been a turning point in 1983 with the creation of the natural reserve. So since hunting was banned, well, the wildlife began to return and the process of defaunation began to be reversed. As a result, many local gatherers had no more employment opportunities because they were hunters before. So provincial authorities managed to build the first group of park rangers. So this is a good example of somehow transformation between being a mariscador, we would call it in Spanish, to a park ranger to protect the ecosystem. So which was the original vision when Kris and Doug arrived to Argentina? First of all, they were willing to create national parks. And for that, they knew they had to purchase private lands, and they wanted to create leverage among public lands to create and expand these new protected areas. What's more, they were willing to create open parks for everyone. So Doug used to recall that he grew up climbing in national parks in the United States, and that he thought that there was nothing more democratic than that, so he wanted that to happen to everyone. So these should be open parks with public use infrastructure, so people could have access to the land and enjoy spending time in nature. And also, they were willing to bring back the top predator. They were willing to do reintroduction process. And since they were really inspired by the wolves' reintroduction in Yellowstone, they were willing to bring back in Argentina the top predator. But just to mention which was the social and political context at that time. So Corrientes has been, as it's mentioned there, historically a cattle rancher province, where there are mainly large landowners that concentrate much of the political and economical power. So the idea at the very beginning of bringing the top predator seemed a little bit crazy for a province that is really used to cattle ranching farming. And at the same time, Argentina is a federal country, and it has a really strong attachment to private land ownership. So also the idea of creating national parks seemed crazy as well. This was like these two crazy Americans that are coming to Argentina and trying to change everything. So the context was hard. At the same time, rice farming, cattle ranching, and forestry were the main dominant visions in the province. And well, the Iberá wetlands was seen as an unproductive place. Okay, so they bought the first property and they started building the team. And for that, they had to create good teams with people that were really committed and motivated, because they were willing to do something never has done before in Argentina, that was creating new national parks and bringing back the top predator. So as you can see, Ignacio is in the picture. Ignacio has been part of the first 10 years of the story of Iberá. I've been part of the last 7 years. Iberá is almost a story of 30 years. And well, there was a key point here I want to highlight for the success of the project, and it has to do that they managed to hire a lot of local people that were deeply connected with the land, and that they had a profound knowledge of the territory. And that is something we still do nowadays. So 90% of the people that work in Rewilding Argentina, they live on the ground, because we are really grassroots organization, and that allows us to make fast decisions. So with a team in place, we started to buy these cattle ranching farms and forestry properties, and with this big idea, right? Creating national park and bringing back the top predator. But at the very beginning, it was really necessary to protect the territory. So we realized that by that time, the main threat in the Iberá wetlands was the illegal alter course of water. I don't know if I said that right in English, but rice farming companies were trying to alter or to move the water from the place it should be. So we decided to use the law as a tool for protection, and we've made more than 50 lawsuits against these illegal rice farming companies. And as a result, a big opposition emerged among many of the social spheres. So by that time, it became really essential and necessary for us to build trust among scientists, local communities, practitioners, and academics. And well, Doug used to recall that, because there has even been a radio program that would say and recall that Douglas Tompkins was willing to steal the water, which is quite funny because in the end he managed to create the largest natural reserve in Argentina for the protection of the wetland. But well, he used to call by that time that the more we are criticized, the harder we need to work. And the picture shows an activist campaign against this alteration of water. So there was a strong resistance at the very beginning when we started working. So we needed to start showing results as a team, as an institution. And well, that was the beginning of rewilding in Argentina. So as I said before, we knew we wanted to reintroduce the top predator. And we decided to take the long way. We knew there were plenty of capybaras and caimans in the area, but we started working with the giant anteater, and it was because it was really easy to get orphans, and it was a low-conflict species. So by 2007, we managed to release the first giant anteater, and for that, we invited the governor of the province. And at the same time, we did a huge educational campaign among the many communities that surrounded the protected area. And also because, I don't know if I just mentioned or not, it was really easy to get orphans. So then we followed our work with the pampas deer. The pampas deer was our first case of translocation. It was banished almost from the entire Argentina, but there was still a small population in Corrientes. So it allowed us to do our first translocation. And then we followed our work with the collared peccary and with the green and winged macaw. That was the first bird species, the one over there, the first bird species we were working with. And it was extinct in Argentina, so it was not possible to get orphans or translocate it from other regions. So at the very first, we received the worst animals, and we had to train them how to fly, how to eat native fruits, and how to escape from predators. So at the same time, it was in our original vision, the idea to create a new national park. And for that, you must go to private, to public ownership, and from provincial to national jurisdiction. So it became really clear for us that communities had to be integrated in the model, but not only to give them access to land for them to enjoy and to connect with nature, but also so as they can become local providers, local entrepreneurs. And this is because local communities, even though they didn't have access to the land, they had access to political power. And for building a national park, you need political support. So well, we built this public use infrastructure, such as the campings, interpretation centers, walkways, lookouts, and we started working with the local mayors, creating the scenic route around the Iberá wetlands to build the momentum so that they could put pressure on political authorities in the right time. So once the public use infrastructure was built, the first local entrepreneurs emerged. And this was as a result of many training programs we've done, workshops and capacity building. Mainly we work on nature tourism-based activities, but nowadays we also work with agroforestry and the development of local products. So the shift, as it says here, has been possible by putting people at the very center of our model. So they stopped being spectators and they switched to be the first protagonists of this story. So that's why at the very beginning I started saying this is a story about people. Iberá, it is about its people. So we realized, and it was really clear for us, that it's not possible to think in long-term conservation without involving local communities. So this was a huge milestone, the reintroduction of the top predator. As I said before, we were willing to bring back the jaguar, but we started with low conflict species from before. And just to mention, Argentina, it's not that common to do rewilding and translocations in Argentina. So somehow we were leading this process. And there were no permits, no technical knowledge. So we traveled the world to learn from other experiences. We came to Spain to learn from the lince ibérico. We've been many times in Africa to learn about large carnivores. We've also been to India and learned about the tiger. Something happened. There was a huge turn point, and that was in 2019 when the first cubs were born in Iberá. These cubs were from Corrientes. And in 2021, we managed to release the first jaguars. This is a video of Marihuá, Caraí, and Porá. And it was a huge milestone. So there has been something really important I want to highlight. Between the first jaguars that were born and their release, there has been a change in jurisdiction because we managed to create the national park. So there was no single authority responsible for the release of the jaguar. While at the same time, we created many videos, we did social campaigns, and by the time the jaguar was released, there was already many people depending on tourism, so asking for the release of the jaguar. And at SWA, there has been something that was really a turning point, is that people from Corrientes are deeply connected to the values of the jaguars. They feel themselves as if they were the macho correntino, the strength. So it's deeply attached to the culture. So what we thought it was going to be complex at the very beginning, it wasn't, because there was no resistance for the release of the jaguar. So in the end, the local resistance from the very beginning made us rethink and create this new model. We call this model the economy of nature model. In Spanish, it would be producción de naturaleza, same as the book Ignacio wrote with that name, which is this model basically. So this model wants to prove that restoring nature can also give opportunities and create employment for local communities. And it's mainly based in 4 pillars. The first one is park creation. So we work to protect and to create new and expand protected areas in land and sea, and to build public use infrastructure to foster local development. At the same time, we work on ecological restoration. So we work to create completely fully and functioning ecosystems. We mainly work with big herbivores, top predators, and seed dispersers, and with abundant wildlife that can also be used as a source of income to promote these restorative economies, mainly based on nature tourism, agroforestry, and the development of local products, cultural products. And in the end, all of this brings a lot of well-being for the communities, that now they do have an opportunity to stay at home and they don't have to leave to bigger cities in search of job opportunities. So this model, basically what it describes is that it's possible to do conservation and development at the same time. And then, well, the Iberá Committee, it's our governance model. So this is our interdisciplinary committee where there are many NGOs represented, also politicians, senators, and different governmental authorities, and they work all together on the same common ground. They're looking to the same plans for the long term in terms of conservation, infrastructure development, and regional development. So we did our first plan master plan in 2016. And since it's not only about institutions, the Iberá Committee managed to create the Iberá Cooks network and the Artisans network. So this enabled us the possibility to expand our impact. Well, this map I want to highlight. This is the map of the province of Corrientes. And it's a really important map since it shows the different sources of production in the province, such as cattle ranching, rice farming, and forestry. But it also shows the icon of the Jaguar, represented there, as the economy of nature is now a new source of production in the province. So regarding the social and economic impacts or outputs, well, through this model, we managed to impact more than 20 towns, 10 of them directly, another 10 indirectly. We have positively reached 200,000 people. We've created 10 gateways, out of which 4 were donated by Rewilding Argentina, but the rest were created from the government. They invested the money to create these new portals. The Iberá Wetlands nowadays has more than 60,000 visitors per year. We managed to create the committee, as I've just mentioned. There are more than 130 cooks and more than 60 artisans that now depend on this new economy, the economy of nature. And while tourism is not only a promise, but it's already happening and on the way. And regarding the ecological outcomes, so we managed to go from 0 to more than 50 jaguars roaming free in the Iberá. This is great accomplishment. Well, we managed to go from 0 to 5 giant anteater populations, more than 43 red and green macaws. We're still working on that species. They're not a sustainable population. They're hard to manage. We managed to create the first wild giant otter family, more than 350 pampas deer, 5 colored peccaries populations. So many examples of the different species we're working to reintroduce and to bring back. And all of these in a 750,000 protected area. So all of our work was guided by the vision of Rewilding Argentina. And basically, the vision is to reverse the biodiversity crisis by reestablishing this fully functional ecosystem and promoting these restorative economies where people and nature can thrive. And well, now that we proved that this model has been really successful, we are working to expand our model through other ecoregions, such as the Atlantic forest in Iguazú, the cloud forest in Alto Bermejo, the dry Chaco forest in El Impenetrable National Park, the Atlantic basin in the ocean with our coastal marine project, and the microbasin of the Patagonia oasis. So now I'm going to share a video that talks a little bit more with nice visuals about the work we are doing.
50 años, la mitad de las especies desaparecieron del planeta.
1 millón de especies de plantas y animales en peligro de extinción.
1 million species are on the verge of extinction.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
Hoy lo que estamos viviendo es la crisis de extinción producto de una economía basada en el sacar todos los recursos y considerar la naturaleza un recurso para los humanos. Explotarlos, dilapidarlos y comiéndonos nuestro propio hábitat y nuestra propia posibilidad de vivir en este planeta.
No es únicamente que estamos perdiendo especies, estamos perdiendo interacciones ecológicas. Un bosque no puede existir si no existen las especies que dispersan los frutos de ese bosque. Un bosque, una pradera, una estepa no sobrevive sin las relaciones ecológicas que le son propias y que lo han formado y lo han moldeado a lo largo del tiempo.
In 1997, we started to work on the restoration of ecosystems in Argentina. And the place we chose to work in was the Iberá Wetlands.
Cuando uno observa Iberá desde el aire parece un ecosistema infinito, inabarcable, intocado, pero cuando uno aterriza y se sumerge en Iberá, empieza a ver otras cosas.
Se veía poca fauna y se veía poca gente. Y esto fue por un proceso de faunación muy fuerte que hubo hasta los años 60, donde se cazó y se portó los cueros, plumas y todo para abastecer los comercios europeos.
Era un ambiente vacío, un escenario pero sin actores.
We set off to re-establish Iberá as a functioning ecosystem by bringing back the animals which had gone locally extinct from our own human interference. And to achieve this, we began the most ambitious program to reintroduce species in Latin America. Rewilding means actively working to help locally extinct animals return to the places that they inhabited, reestablishing relations and interactions that keep ecosystems healthy. To this end, we employ two strategies: rehabilitating animals that have been injured or living in captivity and translating them to a secure area so that after intensive work, they can return to life in the wild. We also translocate healthy animals from national parks and other protected areas to areas under restoration to help create healthy new populations. This intensive work takes place with a collaboration of governments and other institutions, together with biologists, veterinarians, park rangers, technicians, and local residents. With the national government, the province of Corrientes, and the National Parks Administration, after years of intensive work, we have been able to reintroduce iconic species of Iberá, like the giant anteater, the pampas deer, the collared peccary, and the red and green macaw. And now, we're undertaking our greatest challenge, reintroducing top predators such as the giant otter and the jaguar. Rewilding is part of a larger vision. Rewilding means protecting and restoring natural environments with all their species and natural processes to help sustain a healthy local economy through nature-based tourism. Wildlife recovers its vitality and becomes integral to the identity of local communities who show pride in their surroundings by staying and working toward a new model of development that respects and prioritizes beautiful, healthy, and vibrant environment.
El impacto acá es la salud del ecosistema, el bienestar de las comunidades, la cantidad de jóvenes que quieren quedarse y elegir apostar por ese lugar que se llama su casa.
We have started to apply all that we have learned in Iberá to other regions of Argentina: the Gran Chaco, Patagonia, and the Argentine Sea. We hope that more countries of Latin America and the world will feel inspired to work together to stop the extinction crisis. Let's all take this journey together to return to nature.
Okay, nice video, right? And now we go to the challenges and opportunities and lessons learned. This is the favorite part for Ignacio, but I think to all of us, because this is the reason we're here, to share our experience and to see what we can learn from others. So thinking about Iberá, which are the six, we chose 6 main challenges. We do have many, but we chose 6 for this presentation. The first one is to ensure the quality management of the great Iberá Park in the long term. What happens if, as an organization, we leave the territory? That's a big challenge. Up to now, and for now, we are staying with the teams on the ground, and we're also acquiring some small but strategic properties to reduce the threats. Second challenge is to raise and standardize the quality of nature-based tourism services. So it's not about the quality, the management of the park, but the quality of the local providers. So with the recovery of the jaguars, we need to develop protocols for the welfare of animals, and we need to make sure all the experience are somehow standardized. Third challenge identified is to transform production practices in buffer areas, such as buffalo farming and forestry. Fourth, manage coexistence between jaguars and cattle ranchers. Now that the population of jaguars is growing, luckily, we'll have to reinforce our coexistence program to avoid solutions such as hunting or poaching. And then, control the increasing population of invasive exotic species, such as the axis deer, the feral pigs, and the buffalo. And then, last but not least, make sure we adapt ourselves to climate change, since we have some big droughts in the past few years who brought big wildfires that went out of control. Almost 20% of the park went into fire a few years ago. But luckily, there are so many opportunities identified. The first one comes with the recovery of the jaguar population. So this economy of nature model is mainly for the communities. You know, it's a model where the first ones who benefit is the local people. So the lodging is mainly based in the local villages. But with the recovery of the jaguar, we think we can attract luxury hotels that are willing to invest in the area, because now the jaguar brings new opportunities and brings new, bigger investors to the area. And we can replicate models such as Savvy Sand in Kruger, or also what our friends from Pantanal in Old Safari, that they're working on high-end tourism based on wildlife watching. Second challenge is to replicate Iberá's model, not only among other provinces of Argentina, but also along other countries such as Bolivia, Brazil, and Paraguay. And last but not least, make the province of Corrientes to position themselves as the nature leaders. They just a few months ago passed the bill we call the Rewilding Bill, because at the very beginning there were many extinct species in Iberá, and we had to receive wildlife from other projects. But now Iberá has become a source of wildlife for other regions. So we want to empower the province of Corrientes as this leading movement. And now we go to lessons learned. First lesson would be, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't do as the red and green macaw. Since this has to do with the volatility of our country in Argentina, we go to right and left in very short time. So we try to keep private land and to manage at the same time national and provincial jurisdiction as to reduce the risks. Second lesson learned from Iberá would be learn from the very best, from the very beginning. As I've mentioned already, we were doing things for the very first time, and we had no technical knowledge. So we managed to travel among many different parts of the world to learn from the very best and from the ones that had the most experience. And usually people is really open to share, and it's for free, like such as we are doing here in Valencia, sharing our experiences and exchanging among others. Third lesson learned, learn by doing. Innovation happens on the ground. And this is because even if we can travel the world to learn from others that know a lot, many times we're doing these things for the very first time. Like, for example, reintroducing the Jaguar. So you had to experience at every stage of the process. And for that, a key takeaway would be successful large-scale restoration requires both the humility to learn from others and then the courage to innovate when there are no blueprints. So the fourth lesson learned goes to the governance model. This is a picture of the governor of the province of Corrientes with Kris and Sofia, our former CEO. This shows a very nice picture of the first jaguars that were born in Corrientes. And what we understood that doing rewilding is not only about ecology, but it's also a lot about economics and politics. So we try to engage with provincial authorities, municipal authorities, and national authorities from the very beginning. Then think like an entrepreneur and avoid the culture of fear. So above all, Doug Tompkins, I haven't had the chance to get to know him, but I've heard a lot about him. He's still like living within us. It's really like in our DNA of our organization. So he was a bold entrepreneur. And so if we want to face these big challenges as biodiversity crisis, we have to spend our time and gather people with great vision if we are willing to change the system and change the status quo. And many times fear and caution are big barriers for change. So think like an entrepreneur. 6 goes to communities. Communities are essential. As I've mentioned already, there's no lasting conservation projects, at least in Argentina, that could be sustained in the long term without the involvement of these communities. They should be the main protagonists. They should be at the very center of our daily decisions. And then, well, communication matters from the territory outward. So we develop different communication strategies according to the people that we want to influence. So this is a campaign we did for the release of the Jaguar. As I've mentioned before, we did many series of videos that we posted on social media where local mayors, ranchers, and even entrepreneurs were asking for the release of the Jaguar. And the 8th place goes to connect wildlife with local culture and identity. Once people are connected with the values of the animals we want to bring back, it's more easy for them to protect them, such as what happened with the Jaguar in Argentina. The Correntinos people, they felt there were these machos with a lot of strength, so they wanted to protect the Jaguar, and they're willing to release the Jaguar as well. And then last but not least, dream big and choose your team wisely. I've started the presentation showing the video of the Jaguar that was dispersing through the Paraná River, and that gave us evidence that dreams come true. So, well, dream big, and things will come. So in the end, the Iberá Park is a story of success built on shared leadership. And well, we think that Iberá is a real landscape of hope, since proves that large-scale restoration is not only possible, but underway. And our next step is to go for the protection, restoration, and reconnecting South America. And for that, Sofia is giving a talk tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias, Ignacio. Ahí va.